Chuck Mathieu is here at the Peabody Public Library. It's December the 1st, 2009, for the Oral History Project of Whitley County. And I'm John Pontius. Thank you for coming here to talk about Churubusco Whitley, Churubusco history today.
Appreciate you having us.
I assume you were born and raised in Churubusco?
Yes, I was.
What schools did you go to?
Attended Churubusco schools all through.
Okay, are you talking about the same schools that are there now?
No. Well, when I first started, the elementary, high school, everything was in one. It was actually a 3-story building, 2 stories and a basement on Whitley Street, where the playground currently is.
Okay, and it's not there?
It has since been torn down.
Okay.
And that was like the 3rd school that was erected on that particular site.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all of basic, similar design and so on. And then it was in 1958 that the new high school opened up, and I did all of my elementary school in the old building, and then junior high you moved over to the new building.
Mm-hmm. And it was 1958 when the consolidation with Green Township occurred?
I believe it was, and I take that back, it was 57 actually. It was 58 graduating class was the first one, so it would have been in 57-58 school year.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe that was about the same time, yes, that Collins and, well, Green Township came a little bit later. I think that's about the time Collins came into Busco school system.
So a little Collins actually moved up there a little after that, the grade school.
Oh, was it after the Green School?
I'm just asking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I believe Collins came in first, and then they combined with Green Township.
Oh, did
and that would have probably been near 60.
Okay. Okay. Was that any kind of a hassle with getting this consolidation together?
It didn't appear to be. Of course, at that time, like I say, I was just a student, and it wasn't anything noticeable. Mm-hmm. But I don't believe there was too much repercussion, between the counties or the townships or anything.
And did that mean that some schools in Noble County disappeared?
They continued to use the Greentown or Green Center School, which prior to was, all grades through high school. And then junior high and high school Green Center kids came to Busco, and they maintained the elementary school at Green Center. I can't give you the exact date on that, but probably maybe around 1990, something like that, that it still served as elementary school.
I don't know if you're a sports fan or not, but many times community takes great pride in some successes of individuals or teams. Do you recall any particular times in the past 30, 40 years that has happened with Churubusco?
In the past 30 or 40 years. I don't believe in 30 or 40 years that they've won a sectional. They've won several of their conference titles in basketball. In 1983 football season, they actually went to the state championship game. Okay. And they lost it. They were runner-up, but so that was a big event for that. And they had, or have had, several cross-country track people that have gone on to semi-state and state.
I seem to remember a Jeff Perlich, basketball player, was really good sometime a while back.
Yes, he would have been
in the 80s.
From about 83 through 87, I believe, yes. Yes, and he was a very good ball player.
So, when you were growing up, what kind of things did you do for fun and entertainment?
John, I'm still growing up. I'll get old, but I'll never grow up. Unlike today, we actually went outside. We did things. I mean, in the summertime, you were on your bicycle from, I was going to say from sunup, but from the time you got out of bed, until dark. And We had a small park system back when I was younger. We'd go back to the park.
Where was the
Play.
park?
It, pretty much where it is today, only it was a lot smaller, where the Boy Scout building is.
On the west side of town?
Yeah, it's to the north and the west side, yes.
Okay.
It's actually right in behind the school.
Mhm.
And we always had a baseball game going on, or
Did you have a-
basketball in the fall.
Yeah. Did you have a movie theater in?
There actually was a movie theater until about 1957, I believe it closed down, 57 or 58.
Mhm.
And
Where was that?
it's where St. John Bosco Catholic Church now has their CCD classes in that building. It's right on Main Street, across from the police station there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was called the York Theater. And I do remember going to that as a kid, you know, on a Saturday. If you had 15, 20 cents, you know, you could go catch a movie, get a popcorn, something to drink. Of course, you were hard pressed coming up with that 15, 20 cents that time too, but you could still catch a couple. Usually it was a double feature on Saturday.
What did you do right after high school?
Right after high school, well, actually I started in my current position when I was 14 years old as a carryout boy at the IGA store. And I am still there as a carryout boy, even to this day. No, I'm actually store manager, but
Okay.
but we do carry out and everything still.
Okay. Now, this is known as eGolf's IGA. Can you give us a little history there?
Yes, it actually started out as Drew's IGA, and that would have been back in the 30s and 40s, early 40s.
Okay.
And then John Shelton bought the business in, I believe it was 1949, and it was Shelton's IGA. And at that time, it's where K&K Video is today. But at that time, it was just the north side of the building. The other side of the building was Mayberry Furniture Store. And then a few years later, then John bought out that, and the whole building became the grocery store. And Mayberry's moved across the street then. And then it was in 1966, John was in bad health, and Bob Egoff bought the store and has owned it ever since. And then in 1982, moved out to its current site out south of town.
Now, the Eagle family were one of the early settlers in the area, I believe.
They were, but there are several different Egoff families.
Okay.
They may touch each other, but they're not
Okay.
close relationship. But I believe his family has been around this area for quite some time.
What are some of the Eagles, what have they been doing in the past 30, 40 years around Churubusco?
Well, like I say, the Bob Egoff that owns the IGA store has owned that since '66. And then there is another Bob Egoff who has a big farming operation
Yeah.
out west of town. Well, it actually surrounds the town, but he actually lives out west of town. And then there are a couple other Egoff families up in Green Township. That would have been Russell Egoff, and he had passed away here a year or so ago.
Now, I noticed there's a trustee by the name of Egolf now. Mel Egolf, or?
Okay, Mel would be Russell's son, yes. He's Green Township, I think, trustee, yes, that is
Okay.
correct, yes.
Okay.
But like I say, I know, I'm not sure which of those Egoff families
Okay.
goes where.
What about some of the groceries in the past in Churubusco? I assume there were several smaller ones.
Yes, there were. Actually, well, there's been quite a few. Talking back around 1900, there were several meat markets, butcher shops, bakeries, and grocery general stores. But in the 40s, there was actually an AMP store in town. Stan Myers owned that. There was the IGA store. Leach's had a meat market and grocery. And then there was a Kroger store
Now, okay,
That
where
sits-
was the Kroger store?
Kroger store would have been right on Main Street in Washington, the corner of Main and Washington, where,
Okay.
well, there's a photo studio in there today.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now, have many buildings been torn down in the past 30, 40 years?
There really haven't been too many that have been torn down. There's, as a matter of fact, like I say, I'm a big postcard and photo collector.
Mhm.
And if you look at some of the photos from the late 1800s, early 1900s, the buildings all look the same, pretty much, except they've had like aluminum siding put on or
Mhm.
brick front, something like that. But most of the businesses or buildings are still existing.
They just
Now-
may be used for different things.
They've been used for different, yeah. But where Schroyer's Hardware and Variety Store is today, Rex Bangs had the 5 and 10 cent store, and he had bought that from an Eisenman in 1946, I believe, and it was located where the Star Insurance is today, for Jones Insurance. And Rex bought 2 buildings and an empty lot where Schroyer sits today. Now, those buildings had been torn down, and they put a,
Okay.
we'll say, the new dime store in, which is 50 years old now. Yeah. But for the most part, most of the buildings are older existing structures.
Now, what about that bank that comes to a point
Oh.
there downtown?
Yeah,
And
National City.
is it it's still a bank?
It
or-
is still a bank, yes. That actually started out as the Exchange Bank, and then later became Churubusco State Bank. And then Fort Wayne National bought out Churubusco State, and then National City bought out Fort Wayne National.
Okay.
And since then, PNC has bought out National City.
Yes.
But, yeah.
Now, what were some of the car dealers through the years? Do you still have a car dealer there?
We do not have any dealerships now, no.
Okay.
We did have a Ford and a Chevy dealership. The Ford dealership originally was Bill Shue owned it, and it was actually located down on Line Street where the National City Bank parking lot is today. That building has been torn down. Actually, they had a fire in it, but that's where it originated, and then later moved over to West Whitley Street where the Lighthouse Cafe is today. And then Walt Harold had a Chevrolet dealership on South Main Street right across from the post office, which today C&A has that building.
Mhm.
And then Bob Amber bought that in the mid-50s.
Mhm.
And
what kind of cars did he?
and those were Chevys.
Okay.
Yeah, so we had a Ford and Chevy dealership both there until probably early 80s is when both of those kind of went out. And
I seem to remember a Churubusco lumber or woodworking company somewhere on the east side or the southeast side.
okay,
That's no longer there?
that is no longer there. That would have been out on the outskirts of town you're talking.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, that would have been Churubusco Woodworking. And excuse me. It had been there for a long time. The Shively brothers, Paul and Al, originally started that out there. And I want to say late 40s, early 50. And then John Ford eventually bought into it. And then John's son took over. And it's just been in the last 2 to 3 years that actually, they closed it down. And there's now a Dollar General there. And then J.R. Ford has put up a Do It Best Hardware on that same site.
I noticed,
Excuse me. And there was also, McCoy's had a lumber company right downtown where Brevins Restaurant is today.
which is no longer there.
It is no longer there.
Okay, so Brevins Restaurant has been there for quite a while.
It's been there probably a good 40 years, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I noticed going into town, C&A Tool is a huge operation. And back 40 years ago or so.
Excuse me.
What were some of the major factories or operations around Churubusco?
Okay. Actually, probably the biggest manufacturing there was American Tractor Corporation.
And what did they make?
They made they called them TerraTracks. It was basically a dozer crawler.
Okay.
Mark Reutemann, his family was from Germany, and they made steam locomotives over in Germany. Well, he moved over here, and in 1946 formed the American Tractor Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
And like I say, they made what they called the TerraTrack, which was a dozer crawler type. And then he actually recruited several people, I think, from the Panther crawler division down in Texas, because Paul Hawkins and Paul Duffy both came from Garland, Texas up here, and they were kind of their plant managers. And in 1957, GAI Case bought out the American Tractor Corporation because of their hydraulic system, and that's the only way they were going to get the hydraulics that they needed, was to buy them out. And then in 1959, they moved out of town to Burlington, Iowa. But J.I. Case and American Tractor employed several hundred people at that time. And then after J.I. Case had moved out, I think it sat idle for about a year or two, and Victor Gasket bought them and started an operation there, and they had two different plants. And Victor was later acquired by Dana, so they had Dana Plant 8 and Dana Plant 9. Mm-hmm. And at their peak, they hired probably 600 to 700 people there. Mm-hmm. And since then, BRC has bought what used to be old Plant 9, and they are still in operation. Dana is kind of on their way out, and probably by year's end, first of the year, they will close up there. But CNA Tool has bought that building, so he has some big plans for that. And as far as CNA, that was started by Dick Conroe.
Who's still?
He was still the major owner of it, yes.
Okay. What did they
And that
make?
was in 1969, and he actually started in his garage on Line Street with just a couple lathes and so on, and has expanded where, well, he has a plant in Auburn now.
What do they make?
Virtually anything.
Okay.
Anything that somebody will ask for that no one else will manufacture, he will manufacture. I just took a tour of it here about 6 months ago, and they make anything from gears that are 6 foot in diameter down to microscopic things for surgical implants or surgical tools. But like I say, they'll specialize in just about anything. I mean,
Okay.
you name it, and they will
Okay.
come up with a plan to design it and build it for you.
I suppose that the busy US 33 has made had quite an effect on the development of Churubusco.
It really has. I mean, that's originally how the town was kind of formed, is the railroad, and 33 was the old Goshen Road. As a matter of fact, the Lincoln Highway actually ran through Churubusco until from 1913 till 1928, I believe it was. And then they basically followed 30.
What was the Lincoln Highway?
Lincoln Highway was a highway that ran from New York City, Times Square, New York City, to, I believe it's San Francisco, California. It was the first nationwide highway,
Okay.
is basically what it amounted to. But, like I say, the town was kind of laid out on the old Goshen Road there and the railroad because of that very reason. And 33 has served kind of as a double-edged sword in town. It's very busy at times. It's hard to get in and out of places. But if you didn't have that US 33, the town would be dead.
Okay.
So like I say, it's kind of a double-edged sword, but it's been very beneficial, and the town couldn't survive without it, really.
Now, Churubusco is kind of apart from the rest of the county up in the corner, and you have a lot of ties with Noble County and Allen County. It's long distance to by phone from Columbia City to Churubusco. And do you lose kind of some of your Whitley County identity that way, or doesn't it matter too much?
I don't really think it matters too much. Okay. I mean, I'll never lose my Whitley County identity. I mean, I don't care where I may live. I'll always have that.
Okay.
But like you say, being located in a corner of the county like that, you know, you go 100 yards to the east and you're in, well, let's see, that would still be Allen County. But you go about a mile to the north, you're in Noble County. Going to the south, about a half mile, you're in Allen County. Mm-hmm. And it's actually beneficial. I mean, we've got access to Columbia City, we've got access to Fort Wayne. And like I say, the phone system is a little different, that it's long distance Columbia City, but...
Has Churubusco, the population, grown much in the past 20, 30, 40 years?
It really hasn't, according to the latest census. And I served on the town council as president for like 14 years. And I argued with the last census figures because our population went down like 300. And we put new housing developments in, and at that time there was very few empty homes. So I can't really think that Churubusco itself, as far as the corporate limits, hasn't changed much. So the population has maintained about the same there. But in the surrounding area, it has expanded immensely.
So that's not a true indication of
I don't feel so, no, because, you know, there's all kinds of housing on the outskirts of town.
Okay.
And that's just like, well, the CVS store, the IGA store, let's say the new hardware and the Dollar General, those are all outside the corporate limits, actually, even though they are Churubusco, but they're outside the corporate limits. So the census figure is a little deceiving there, but basically the population has gone up quite a bit, as has for the whole county. Really.
Yes, it's similar in population to South Whitley, I assume?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Like I said, the last census figures, I think, put it at about 1,600. But prior to that, it was like 18, almost 1,900.
Okay.
So, and I think that's probably a little more accurate. I would say the 1,800 would be a little more accurate within corporate limits.
Now, how about the newspaper? What's it called now?
It's Churubusco News now.
And it's not always been Churubusco News then?
Well, yes and no. There's been a lot of newspapers in Churubusco. As a matter of fact, back in the early 1900s, there was about half a dozen different newspapers.
Really?
Some of them would come and go, but there were several that kept going. And the Churubusco Truth was one of them, one of the early newspapers. And that one probably survived the longest because, in my time, I can remember Jim Kirtley owning it in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then...
is he related to Pepper?
Pepper, yes, it'd be Pepper. Well, Jim and Pepper both owned the paper, actually. Okay. I shouldn't say Jim, but Jim was pretty much the publisher of it and so on.
Continues to write for the Columbia City
She has columns in the Columbia City paper, yes. But, yeah, Jim and Pepper, they owned that for about 30 years, and then Ed Dooley bought it and operated it for a while, and then it kind of went by the wayside. He just shut it down.
So there was
there was a period of time when we had no local newspaper per se. I mean, as far as Churubusco itself. And then Bob Allman had worked for Jim and Pepper Kirtley, and he had a newspaper up in Albion, and then he also published the Northwest News for Allen County. And he finally, it's probably been about 10 years now, brought back the Churubusco News, and so we have local paper now.
Okay, which is probably a weekly.
It is a weekly paper, yes.
Okay.
They've just recently gone online though, so it is a little more updated.
Okay.
But the paper itself is still weekly.
So what about the churches? I assume over the years you've had the usual Methodists, Lutherans, Catholics, and Baptist churches in town?
Pretty much, yes. As a matter of fact, the first church in town would have been the United Brethren Church. And let's see, United Brethren was located where? Okay, United Brethren was located where the Believer's Bible is currently today, at the corner of Tully and Main Street.
Okay.
The Baptist Church was actually located on West Tully Street, where there's a home now.
So it's no longer there? Or
It's no longer there,
okay.
no. And then the Nazarene Church started out actually as a tent where Floyd's Auto Sales went in, and like say the Lighthouse Cafe is today. The Nazarene Church actually held tent services like revival services
Now,
there.
how long ago would this be, roughly?
That would have probably been back in the 20s.
Okay.
And then they are the ones that actually built that building where the Lighthouse Cafe is today, and they had their services there.
Okay.
And then they later moved down onto Mulberry Street.
Which is, it's just a block or so off the main.
Yeah, it's just
Right.
a block off of Main Street there.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the Nazarene Church would have set just catty corner from the library.
Okay, and it's
And
not
the
there.
school parking lot is there now. Yeah, the
Okay.
school bought it and used
Okay.
it for parking lot. The First United Methodist Church was located where the school playground is today. And I believe it was 1935, they put a brick building up on Main Street, just a couple doors down from the police station, right on the main drag. And St. John Bosco Church is actually there now. Catholic Church is there today. And but the Methodist Church and Evangelical United Brethren, when they combined, they had built a new church out to the north end of town. And that's when St. John Bosco bought the Methodist Church.
Now, there's a cemetery there, is there, by that church?
No.
Okay.
No, the nearest cemetery is out at Eel River, the Eel River Baptist Church.
And where is it at?
That's located about 3 miles south of Busco, right on the
Okay.
Carroll Road.
Okay. Well, speaking of south of Churubusco, how far is Blue Lake from?
Blue Lake is about a mile from town, and that's to the north and west, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has it changed much in the past since your
Blue Lake
lifetime?
has changed considerably, yes.
Really?
I mean, when I was a kid, they actually had a beach there, which has since been closed down. They put cottages and everything out there now. And prior to that, Blue Lake, I mean, in its heyday, they had a roller skating rink. They had slides going into the water, just all kinds of activities out there. Showed movies. And like I say, as far as activities out there, they have kind of gone by the wayside, but the housing and the cottages around the lake have improved tremendously from what they were.
Okay.
They used to mostly be summer cottages, and now they're year-round homes for the most part.
Any businesses or groceries in that?
There really isn't anymore. There's a small, I think they just sell plants there now, basically in the spring and summertime, which used to be a small grocery there. And then down on Harold Road, there used to be a small grocery there on Harold's Landing also. But we're talking back in the 50s and before.
Okay. Okay.
And those have both since closed down.
Okay, now we were talking about the churches. What about the Catholic Church? You said that they had moved into...
Yes. Yeah, because like I had stated previously, they originally acquired the old York Theater.
Yeah,
And that's
okay.
where their first church in town was. prior to that, it was out north of town at Aggie.
Okay.
And to this day, the same priest still serves both parishes.
And who is that?
Father Danny Pinto.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And like I say, the Baptist church was on the corner, or was on Tully Street there. That has since been torn down. And now the Good News Baptist Church is out on Anderson Road, just west of town. And as I stated previously about the Nazarene Church, when the school bought that, they built out on 205 just to the west of town also.
Well, let's talk about...
And the Lutheran Church is out to the east of town on
Don't
205.
forget the Lutherans.
Yes, I want to make sure we get all the religions covered here.
Let's talk about the history of the library and where it has been off and on through the years.
Okay. My earliest recollection is the downtown main drag has what they call the Central Building or the Flatiron Building.
Okay.
And that sits on the north side of, the east side of 33, or Main Street. And my earliest recollection of the library was, it was in the upstairs above what at that time was Orch's Department Store. It would be the Bargain House today. And the library was up there for a good number of years. And Nettie Gerard was a librarian for as long as I could remember as being a kid.
Okay.
Of course, I spent most of my free time down there too, so. And then it was in 1965, I believe, that they built a new post office in town. They tore down the old American Legion Hall, which at one time was a hotel.
And what street was that?
That was right on Main Street.
Okay.
And put the post office in. And the old post office was over on Mulberry Street.
Mm-hmm.
And when the new post office opened up, the library bought the old post office building. And that served as a library until, I think it was 1977, they had an explosion, a gas explosion, and it just totally demolished the library. We lost virtually every book they had there, and some of them were, some older books and stuff. But it virtually destroyed everything. And then they rebuilt on that same site, and that's where the library is today.
Are you talking about 15, 20,000 books or something like that? What,
I don't know exactly how many books they would have had. I would estimate it to be at least 10,000, though, if not more, yeah.
Sounded about as bad as it can get for a library.
Yes.
Any records lost? Probably.
Pretty much everything, I believe, yes. I mean, they was able to salvage a few things, but hardly anything.
So how did the town and the library board handle that? To come back with a new library?
Actually, it was probably more the township.
Okay.
As far as the funding for the library. And I'm sure insurance and everything, but, the town definitely was behind them. I mean, you got to have a library. I'm sorry, you just have to.
Yeah.
Even with the internet and everything today, you have to have a library. There's nothing like a book. But, and they would like to expand on it, but they're kind of in tight quarters there, and finances. It makes it difficult to expand.
Okay. Who is the librarian now, and how long has she been there?
Current librarian is Carol Shear. Oh, the way time flies. I'll bet Carol's been there for at least 10 years. Though.
Okay.
I would say roughly that, anyhow. And prior to that, I think Karen Brown was the librarian. Dr. Minnick's wife, Jeannie Minnick, was librarian prior to that.
How did you come about your interest in history of the local area?
For the most part, I don't know. I just always, of course, as a kid, we didn't have television or anything like that. You sit around, you listen to the family talk and so on. And probably my first real getting into it was in 8th grade. Chuck Jones was my Indiana history teacher.
Okay.
And I just started following Indiana history. And then I was able to locate a copy of the 1892, I think it was, or 1882 Kaler book on Whitley County. And I found out that there was a David Craig was one of the founders of Churubusco. And my mother's maiden name was Craig. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do a little research on this. Well, I kind of went by the wayside, but I kept, every so often I check into things, and I was able to come up so far from David Craig, and I was able to go back from my mother's side, but there was a generation missing, and I was totally lost there. And finally, a second cousin down in Florida called me a few years ago, and she said, I've got the old Craig family Bible. Would you be interested in a copy of the records out of it? And I said, well, yeah. So she sent that to me, and I come to find out that David Craig was actually like a 4-great-grandfather to me, so.
Okay.
So that's helped pique my interest a little more, but I don't know, just have always had an interest in it.
Now, wait, was your parents were from Churubusco,
Yes.
born and raised? And,
Yes, my mother was. My father came from Fort Wayne, but then was pretty much most of his school years was just outside of Churubusco.
How did Churubusco get its name?
It started out actually as 2 different towns. The railroad divided it, and to the south was Union, and to the north of the railroad tracks was Franklin. And as the Postal Service evolved, there was already a Franklin in Indiana, so they had to come up with a different name. And at that time, they decided that they would combine the towns too and just be one town. And they had numerous names tossed around and so on. But at the time, the United States had just won a battle in the Mexican-American War at Churubusco, Mexico. And the story goes that a Mrs. Jackson had a brother that was serving in the army down there, and she suggested the name Churubusco. And whether that's the true story or not, but anyhow, that's where the name came from, was the Battle of Churubusco.
Okay.
So as
Probably the only Churubusco in the United States.
there are actually 3 in the world. There's one in Mexico, there's one in upstate New York, and there's one in Indiana.
Okay.
And the one in upstate New York is just a crossroads. I actually went up and visited it just out of curiosity.
Well, I have to ask you this. Was there really a big turtle?
You want my personal opinion, or
Yes.
you want?
Yes.
My personal opinion is yes, there was a big turtle.
Okay.
Was it as big as what it has gotten to be today? I doubt. But there is no doubt in my mind that there was something in that lake. I mean, for a farmer to basically go bankrupt, lose his health and everything else,
Okay.
he had to have seen something out there.
Okay. And who was this?
That would have been Gail Harris. And numerous townspeople actually, built cages, nets, telescope or periscope type things. So, like I say, and allegedly there was a Methodist minister up on there helping Gail fix his roof when they first spotted it. So, well, I should say when he first spotted it, because back in 1897, it was allegedly a large turtle was sighted out there also.
Okay.
So yes, there was something there, but like I say, I'm sure as time goes by, the turtle got a little bigger.
Okay. How did that develop into Turtle Days?
Basically, every small town or every town had some kind of festival every year.
You're right.
And Churubusco had they had a fall festival, I think they had an onion festival, just various ones. And with the notoriety that the turtle hunt got for the town, because it was nationally and internationally actually recognized, I think it just gave them a theme to go with. And it's been very beneficial for the town, going by Turtle Town, USA, or whatever. I know I've been to numerous places. I've been out east of New York, and waitress would ask where you was from, you'd tell her, well, that's where the Big Turtle was.
Oh, okay.
Here a few years ago, I was out in New Mexico, and I was in a rest area, and this guy in a traveler trailer pulls up, and I see you're from Indiana. Whereabouts you from? I said, well, it's just north of Fort Wayne, Indiana. I said, Churubusco. Churubusco, oh, the Big Turtle place. So, like I say, it has achieved some recognition there. But, like I say, having a festival was just kind of commonplace,
Yes.
and the theme of the turtle helped out, and it's been very beneficial to the town because almost all the proceeds have gone to the park. And like I stated earlier, it was started out as a 3-acre swamp back there with a Boy Scout lodge on it, and today we've got one of the nicest parks around. I mean, I'd match it up with some big city parks even.
Okay. Now, is there something called the Magic Wand?
Yes, there is. And that started out not really as a drive-in restaurant. It actually, Harold McCoy or Orla McCoy built it, but Ray DeCamp ran it as a Tasty Freeze initially.
About how long ago?
That would have probably been around 1960 to 1962. And then I think Ray and Orlo had a falling out or something, so Ray bought the land across the street and built a new Tasty Freeze over there, and therefore Stan Myers ended up buying the old Tasty Freeze, and his son Max and his wife Judy started running it, and it became a Magic Wand. And they've expanded on that a couple times now. It's still just a nice, small, local, not a fast food place, but it is a fast food place. You get served faster there than you can at McDonald's. And then, like I say, they've moved across the street, had his Tasty Freeze over there, and that's gone through several hands. It's actually the Ramble Inn now restaurant.
What about the town hall? Recently I heard that it's going to move. Where has it been in the past?
In the past, it's been in various places. At one time, like I say, the old Churubusco State Bank building had an upstairs to it. Originally, most of the meetings were held in the upstairs there. And then later, they moved the town hall down to the old fire station on Line Street, which sits right next to the fire station.
Okay.
And that served as town hall for a long period of time. And then Paul Weinbrenner had the monument works there in town, which set back on the National City parking lot also. And then when Paul went out of business, he had just put up a brand new pole building. So he donated that to the town. I mean, they had to reconstruct it and everything. And they moved it back to its present site on Home Avenue. And the town hall's been there since probably 1982, 83, something like that.
Okay.
And then, like you stated, there talk of moving over onto Main Street, on South Main Street there.
Now, Churubusco doesn't have a mayor, or have they ever had any kind of...
They don't have a mayor. They have a 3-member town council and a clerk treasurer.
So there's not, one person that's in charge?
No, it's a 3-member
Okay.
committee. I mean, you have a council president, but that's basically for paper signing and so on. I mean, it's a 3-member board, and they work in conjunction with each other. Most of the time. There have been times when they haven't. But
Well, who were some of the leaders in the past, like in your lifetime? You said there's no mayor.
Well, let's see. Dale Lefevre served as clerk treasurer for about 42 years, I believe. And I know, like I say, my 14-year term on the town council, he was my mentor. I mean, without him, I'd have been totally lost. Not that I wasn't lost anyhow, but I would have been totally lost.
This was not a paid job?
Yeah, the clerk treasurer was a paid position, yes.
Okay.
Not well-paying, but it was a paid position, yes. Yeah, as is the council age. Well, at the time I was on, I think it was $3,000 a year, something like that. And
I suppose you've had
but-
some councilmen, county council people from Churubusco?
we have had a few, not too many. As a matter of fact, currently we are well represented, with Donnie Amber being a commissioner and John Barrett is a council member for the county. Trying to think back. I know we've had a sheriff, Harold Talby, was originally from town, served as a local police officer before he became sheriff over here. F. Dale Barrett served as a state senator back in the late 50s, early 60s.
Were there prominent people that in the past that the town kind of looked up to for advice, and no single one necessarily? Or?
Yeah, I mean, there were some prominent families in town that probably were kind of the foundation of the town. Kiesler's was one of the families. They had law offices. Perry Ort was also a lawyer. The Ort family had several businesses in town. Originally, Oscar Gandy started one of the first banks in Churubusco, and that family was very prominent. They also had a car dealership, early car dealership. Dr. Briggs was well known, Dr. Weaver.
Now, Dr. Briggs was a dentist or?
Dr. Briggs was a medical doctor.
Medical doctor.
Yeah,
There was another.
Dr. Weaver was a dentist.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, he was one of those that was very instrumental on the Lincoln Highway Committee. He served on that committee.
Were there lawyers in town all this time?
Yes. Like I say, Perry Ort was, when I was younger, was kind of the main attorney there. Isla Kiesler and her father had been a lawyer, and she followed kind of in his footsteps and was a local attorney. Those are the only two real prominent ones I can think of right now. I mean, we've had numerous kind of come and go, but those were some of the mainstays that were there for a long period.
Was there ever a time when there was a town meeting where a lot of the town gathered together on some issue, where the whole community kind of had a say over something?
I'm sure, like we talked on the school redistricting and stuff, I'm sure at that time there had to have been some conflict and some conversation held there.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sure throughout the years there probably has been various ones. In my lifetime, I really don't remember any sticking out. I know, like I say, as I served on the council, we ran a sewer line out to Blue Lake to help clean up the lake. And that was very controversial for quite a few months. But even at that, at our council meetings, you'd be lucky if you had 15 people show up, you know. Okay. So
I got a question about Smith Township. Wasn't Smith Township settled earlier than most other townships in Whitley County?
It's my understanding that it was one of the first. I want to say it was the first, but I can't verify that. But from what I've read, it was one of the first townships settled, yes. And it was by Samuel Smith. It was named after.
Okay. And so the only two towns, if you call it a town, Collins and Churubusco.
Churubusco were the only two, yes,
and,
within Smith Township.
Churubusco, long ago, probably had a store or a school and that sort of thing.
Churubusco or Collins?
I mean, sorry, Collins.
Yes, Collins did have a school, yes. And it was, you know, first through 12th grade.
Post office?
I believe they also had a post office, yes. I can't remember now what year that post office closed, but they did have a post office, yes.
Okay.
And they had a general store, gas station there.
Okay. Well, is there Anything else that important you'd like to add to all this?
I'm sure there is, but right off of the top of my head, I can't.
Okay.
On my way home, I know I'll come up with a lot of things. Oh, I should have mentioned this or that. But no,
Okay.
I think you've covered most of the bases there. We got the name of the town. And like I stated, you know, the founder, actually there was two founders, William Walker and David Craig were the founders of the town.
Well, Chuck, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge of Churubusco with us for the benefit of future generations.
Thank you for allowing me to. That's always been one of my big things is it's got to be passed on, you know. And
Good, yes.
yeah. And like I give a presentation to the second or third graders back at school. And that's what I always tell them, just remember, you know, today is tomorrow's history. So
Right.
things that may seem meaningless today, down the road, you will remember.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, John.